Let me start again by telling you how happy I am to see you all wealthy and participating at this Congress. We are still living difficult times and health comes first. So our thoughts are obviously going to those who have been suffering from the pandemic, and also our prayers. And our thanks go to our modern angels, the medical and paramedical people who have done so much to help us. But let me also thank each and every one of you for your resilience, for your solidarity, for your work in this year. And let me as well thank each and every member of the FIFA staff for what they are doing, for their contribution to keep the ball rolling. They've done an excellent job in the past year. Football stopped almost everywhere. It's now recovering slowly, but we can be a little bit optimistic for the future. We still have, though, to remain vigilant, because the situation is not the same everywhere in the world, and football has proven resilient in this time. This requested compromise. It requested generosity of spirit. It requested teamwork. And you have all delivered on that, because we rose to this challenge. Because football is hope, football is joy, and a little bit of football brings also normality back. And I've been very happy that FIFA has been able to help you a little bit. For example, with the COVID relief plan. $1.5 billion US dollars. This is unique in the world of sport. And this has been financed entirely from the reserves of FIFA, with no external help, because we have reserves. And why we have reserves? Well, because we have been running FIFA in the last few years in a professional and diligent way. Because money in FIFA does not evaporate anymore. And what we don't spend, we set it aside. Because actually, this money is not FIFA's money. This money is your money. And when you are in need, FIFA needs to be there to help. And that is exactly what we've tried to do with this COVID relief plan. It is, of course, my main responsibility to make sure that the resources we generate are invested in football with the highest standard of transparency, of compliance, and of good governance. This is non-negotiable, and this goes as well for the COVID relief plan. Equally important have been the return to football protocols. It was important to come back to play football. It was important to ensure safety. It was important to make sure that we can play again, even in empty stadiums. But it's a step in the right direction. And I would like to commend all of you for your efforts. I know it's not easy. Continue like that. And it's important to remember and to remind us as well of the unity and the solidarity that we need. I would like to thank you for that. It's simple, but it's clear this has to be the pillar for our future. And by the way, we are on track to deliver on the 6.44 billion revenues for next year, and will maybe even be a little bit better, because we are working very hard for you and for football. What do we want to make in the year or in the years ahead? Well, we want to make football truly global. My responsibility as FIFA president is to learn from the past, including from mistakes in the past and to plan the future. That's what leadership is about. And that is what FIFA is about. Dear friends, Article 2 of our statutes, you should read it once, says that it is our duty to improve the game of football and to promote it globally. And that it is also our duty to organize our own international competitions. Our competitions are your competitions because you are FIFA. And in whatever we do, we always have to think about the fans. We always have to think about the countries, all the countries in the world. And we always have to think about the players. We are at the service of football. We are not the protagonists of football. We have to set the scene for the players to shine and for the fans to enjoy, to live football with passion. We have to know what our job is. And ultimately, where do we want to go to? Well, we want to have 50 top national teams and 50 top clubs worldwide. Women and men alike, by the way. Because we have to ask ourselves, dear friends, we are always saying football is the global sport, but is football really global? Well, the answer is no. It is not. Clubs, for example, there are fewer and fewer countries and even fewer clubs who have the highest resources. And this financial disparity, which goes along with the sporting disparity, is growing. Out of the top 30 clubs in terms of revenues, there is not one single club from outside of Europe. And out of the top 20, they are all from only 5 European countries. And this trend is going into more imbalance and not into more balance. When it comes to national teams, the trend is also going into more imbalance. 100% of the semi-finalists in the last 4 World Cups came from only 2 confederations, Europe and South America. 7 out of 8 of the last 8 in the Women's World Cup came from Europe, and 1 from CONCACAF, United States, who then won the tournament. So, dear friends, we have to congratulate the European member associations. They are doing a fantastic job. And we want Europe to grow even more. But we want the rest of the world and the rest of Europe, who is not part of the elite, to grow as well, and at a much higher pace than so far. Because we want to make football truly global. We are speaking a lot, and we are speaking a lot in the last few weeks about the football pyramid. The clubs, the leagues, the member associations, the confederations, and at the top of the pyramid, you have FIFA. And a lot has been talked as well in recent weeks about a super league in Europe. Some kind of breakaway competition outside the football structures. I have said it before, and let me say it again, clearly and unequivocally. FIFA is against any such project. We believe, I believe, that football does not and should not have to look outside of our institutional structures to address the challenges of our sport. Above all, we should not depart from or lose faith in the core principles of solidarity and equal opportunity. These are the pillars upon which our sport is built. At the same time, And I also want to be very clear about this. The existing model of football is not perfect either. As we have seen, we have a situation across the world where there is insufficient balance. We do not see equal opportunities throughout the world. We do not necessarily see too much solidarity either, to be honest. And there is, frankly speaking, a concentration of money and player talent which does not serve the global development interests of the game. And it is our responsibility as FIFA to address this imbalance. We cannot simply ignore it. And we will address it with everyone in a spirit of cooperation and dialogue. So how are we going to make football truly global? We want to focus on 11 areas. 11 areas for action, for a concrete action. The first one is, of course, the international match calendar. And we will face, I can tell you already now, challenges and questions. How many matches can a player play per year? How many competitions do we want or do we need? And what kind of competitions? Do we play too much? Or don't we play enough, maybe, in some parts of the world? Do we want more games? Or do we want less but more meaningful games? And what about this intercontinental travel of players when they have to play for their national teams? We have to realize that the international match calendar is global. It has to take into account of the variety of situations, such as climate and geography, all over the world. And let me be very clear. The starting point is not the calendar is full and so nothing changes. The starting point is the exact opposite of that. We have a blank sheet of paper, and we are open to take on board all views and opinions about how we can make the international match calendar better. Maybe we cannot, but we need to try. We need to be open. We need to be inclusive. We need to give the right to speak to everyone without any fear, because we need to find the right balance between club football and national team football, the right balance between top and grassroots, the right balance for what will be right for football. You know, in the past decades, FIFA was busy with other things, not with competitions, except for the World Cup. During these decades, many leagues, associations and confederations have developed and grown their competitions. And it's great, because this is football. This is what football is about. Now we have even private organizations, private companies who organize international competitions. So where is FIFA in this? It is our statutory duty to do it. It is our task to do it with you and for you. Because we need the world to participate, and not just a few. And also for solidarity. Let me explain you one thing. Today, a big league generates revenues, billions of revenues, from all over the world. And these revenues are distributed where? To the 20 clubs, or 18, or whatever it is, of that particular league, with a small percentage going to solidarity in that particular country. A confederation organizes competition, generates its revenues from all over the world, and distributes its revenues to the participating clubs and a little bit on solidarity in the continent. And this is normal. It's their right to do so. They act in accordance with their statutes and regulations. But the only body in the world who is generating revenues from all over the world and reinvests and distributes its revenues all over the world in solidarity and football development is FIFA. And we need to take this element as well into account when we speak about the development of football. So the second area are the men's competitions. We have already decided, as you know, to increase the number of teams for the World Cup in 26 from 32 to 48. And we did so without increasing the number of games for the team that will be world champion. With 32 teams or 48 teams, you still have to play 7 games in 32 days if you want to become world champion. Exactly the same. But we give 16 countries in the world the dream and the possibility to play in a World Cup. And we know what this means to qualify for a World Cup, for a football movement, for a country, for the pride of everyone. The same for the Club World Cup. We have decided to create a new, expanded Club World Cup, which should foster club football all over the world. Because we need to be inclusive. We need inclusivity. In a spirit of understanding and compromise, the first edition of this Club World Cup, which should have been taking place now, has been postponed. Of course. In the same spirit of understanding and compromise, we will fix a new date for this new Club World Cup, which will be an exciting tournament for the world. The third area is women's competitions. And let me give you one figure at the outset. The increase in the number of teams, women's national team, who participated in the qualifiers of the World Cup 2019 compared to 2023 is incredible. We moved from 140 to over 180 participants. Very soon, all of our 211 member associations will have a women's national team, because those who are not yet there, they are preparing to be there. A new era is starting for women's football, dear friends. A new era in which we have asked the Congress to agree that it should be up to the Congress to vote for the host of the next Women's World Cup. Like for the men. Why there is a difference? Doesn't make sense. In a bidding process which has to be professional, transparent and ethical, as it was the case. We are investing $1 billion in 4 years to boost women's football. We will talk about the frequency of the Women's World Cup. Should it take place every 2 years or every 4 years as it is now? The first one launching this idea was the president of the French Football Federation, now joined by the president of the Saudi Football Federation. Let's see. Let's discuss. And we want to launch as well a new Women's Club World Cup, because women's club football is equally important as men's club football. And we are working with our women's football department on the professionalization of women's football with modules tailor-made for all member associations, giving pathways to girls to be able to shine on the highest stage. And we will commercialize women's football also independently. We are not going anymore to our broadcasters and sponsors and tell them, you want to buy the Men's World Cup, we give you in addition the women's as well. These times are over, gone. So make no mistake, dear friends, women's football is about to become one of the world's most popular sports. And this is not only a sporting achievement, also a social one. And we can all be proud. You can be proud of that. The next area are, number 4, the youth competitions. We've been talking for a couple of years now, what do we want to do with our youth competitions? We have under 17s, under 20s, boys and girls, every 2 years. We need commitment to make changes here. We know that if we keep the tournaments every 2 years, every second year, many talents are getting lost. A 17-year-old boy in a country has 5 times more chances to participate in a World Cup than a 16-year-old, just because the World Cup happens to be in that particular year. So we need to see if we want to play our youth competitions yearly or every 2 years. The next area, number 5, is linked with the financial regulation. It's also an important area. And the pandemic has shown, I think, to all of us how fragile the football ecosystem is. We have been taking, in the framework of the transfer system, some provisional measures to help. But we need to put in place, in the transfer reform, serious financial control mechanisms. We need them to protect clubs. We need them to protect players. We need them to protect the whole football ecosystem. And we need to have, for the new transfer system, the highest standards of transparency and accountability. We don't have to shy away from topics such as tighter players' agents regulations, or salary caps, or transfer fee caps, or transparent calculation mechanisms to see what we are talking about. Because we need to bring a bit of light in the opacity of all these transfer transactions. Let me show you just one figure in this respect. The figure you can see here on the screen. In the last pre-COVID year, 2019, the global transfer spend for international transfers was around $7 billion, moving from one country to the other. The agent fees, players' agent fees, were around $700 million. And the money which went to training clubs was around $70 million. I think these figures are quite telling. And I think that we cannot be satisfied with them. And for this reason, we have put in place a clearinghouse. A clearinghouse which will work to make sure that those clubs investing in training and being entitled to a training compensation and a solidarity payment will receive the money. With this clearinghouse, everything will be automatic. And this means concretely that instead of 50 million or 60 or 70 million every year, the clubs will receive every year, the training clubs, up to 300 million, which is money which is due to them, but which is not paid today. 300 million a year for training clubs is a lot of money. Of course, it is our duty to make sure that this is going to happen. And similarly, and I would like to thank the stakeholders and the stakeholder committee, we are looking and we have established a fund for players. I was saying we have to think about fans, about players as well. Not only the top players, but all the players. And we have established a fund of $16 million, of which more than 1,000 players have already benefited. 1,000 players who lost their job. The lion's share of this money goes actually to players in Europe, because we need to help those players who don't have the means. The next step, or the next area, is the laws of the game. This is an area for IFAB, but FIFA is obviously already as well part of that. We need always to foster attacking football. And the offside rule is definitely one of these rules that we need to look at. 1 week after I was elected FIFA president, there was my first IFAB meeting, and we decided to scrap the double penalty or triple penalty rule. You remember, red card and penalty at the same time, and suspension of the player. After 10 years of discussion, 10 years, in 1 week, we took it away. Everyone was happy, because this is what football wants. We have changed a few rules, a few laws to make the game faster. And now we are looking and we are testing a possible new offside rule. Why? Because if you look at the history of the offside rule, it has been developed in order to foster attacking football. So we need to see what we can do. In addition, VAR has created a situation which maybe was not expected. Before VAR, referees were told, in case of doubt, give the advantage to the attacker. With VAR, you don't have doubts anymore. And the term marginal offside has become suddenly an important term. And people are saying, well, it's marginal offside. How can it be? It's the famous nose, right, who is offside. We shouldn't cancel the goal just because the nose is offside. Well, it's the rule. It is the rule. So we have to see if we need to change this rule. So the current rule says that if any part of your body with which you can score a goal is over the line of the second last defender, then it's offside. We are testing the opposite rule, so to say, saying that if any part of your body with which you can score a goal is in line with the defender, then it's not offside. To give an advantage, of course, to the attacking player. One statistic here as well. In the Premier League last season, there were 4 offside situations per game. With this new rule, 2 out of these offside situations would be onside, and maybe a few more goals would have been scored. But of course, we need to see what kind of impact this has on the game, and that's why we are testing it currently in America and in China, and Professor Arsene Wenger is supervising this work, so we are in safe hands there. Speaking about the laws of the game, let me also say a word about protecting players' health. We have introduced the 5 substitutions exactly for this reason, and we'll have to look into that very soon. And we have introduced also a concussion substitution. We are studying this question. We need to be aware of the situation, and we need to do whatever we can to protect the players. Lastly, on the laws of the game, let me just say a word about the VAR or VAR. We have more than 100 competitions worldwide who use VAR. And VAR is definitely bringing more justice and more transparency into the game. The margin of error of referees has moved from 95 to 99%. Yes, there is still 1%, but it's better 1 than 5. The big decisions or mistakes are corrected. And this is a help for the referee, and it is a help for the justice of the game. And we want to help all 211 associations by developing a VAR Lite, a lighter system of VAR that can still give the possibility, with less cameras, with less infrastructure, to help the referees. Let's move to the 7th area, which is football development and the Forward program. And this is probably the greatest achievement since 2016, because we have multiplied by 5 the funds for you. 5 times more. We did not increase our revenues by a factor of 5. We did not even double our revenues. But we were able to increase development monies by 500% in the Forward program, simply because we do our job seriously. Simply because money does not disappear. This is a sea change in the culture of FIFA. And you know, because you're in it, that this is also linked with tighter controls on your end, on what you are doing with this money. And stay tuned, because Forward 3.0 is coming very, very soon. Speaking about football development, we need to go to the 8th area, and we go to technical development, the first action here, which has already been kicked off, is called Give Every Talent a Chance. Arsene Wenger and his team have gathered data from all member associations, more than 20,000 pages of data. And they are elaborating a tailor-made concept for each country on how best to operate to give every talent in the country a chance to play. We are looking very much forward to that. The second area of technical development, so to say, is the professionalization of referees, something we never speak about. But we should, because there is no football without referees. The referees are our team, and we have to protect them always, even when they make mistakes. Now, if you are lucky and you are born, say, in Italy, you can make a living of being referee. But if you are born in 90% of the countries in the world, this is not the case. And we cannot ask somebody who has to work part-time or full-time and in the evening jog and train a little bit to referee professional players. We need to establish a professionalization for referees. It is crucial for their protection and for their independence, because they come, of course, under heavy pressures everywhere in the world. So we need to work on that. We are and have established already some pilot projects, and we work on that with some of you. The ninth area, very important area, of course, is the social role of football. We need to be aware of our social role. And the first point I want to mention here is the zero tolerance on discrimination. This is another virus, racism, and football sadly is not immune of that. So let me be very clear. There is no place for any type of discrimination in football. No place. We are all equal. And if somebody thinks that he can come to football and discriminate others, then my message is clear as well. You go out. We will continue to educate, but we will also sanction very harshly because it is intolerable. We can also, though, use football to improve society and to cast positive examples. I've been meeting in the last years some senior political figures, and we have achieved some results by pushing boundaries, for example, on human rights, on women's rights, in some countries, or on labor law reforms in other countries. And this brings me to the human rights situation. And in the recent World Cup qualifiers, some footballers have been taking the field to raise human rights concerns and workers' rights. Now I can tell you that since 2016, this is a top priority for us. And we have achieved some progress. We know that there are challenges, and we know that more can be done. But any discussion on this matter should be based on verified facts. As is confirmed by Transparency International, not by FIFA, by the ILO, International Labour Organization, not by FIFA, by the BWI, Building and Woodworkers International, labour unions, not by FIFA, significant progress has been made. But it's clear as well that FIFA's doors are always open to discuss and to debate. And I can tell you that the FIFA World Cup in Qatar next year will not only be the greatest tournament ever, but will also leave a lasting and positive social legacy in the country and also in the entire region. Of course, some criticize what we do, and I'm sure that their concerns are genuine and also legitimate. But again, I invite you all to consider the facts first, and then form your own opinion on whether football has made or has not made a positive difference. Because I believe it has. Let's speak as well about child protection when we speak about the social role of football. It is important that our children can play football in a safe and secure environment. What worse crime can we think about than abusing a child? Difficult to think about something worse. Yet, this happens in society, and this happens as well in football, and we cannot hide it. And we don't have to hide it. We have to fight it. And for this, we need an international structure who can help us fighting it. We are ready to engage in that with governments, with sports institutions, because it's not just about football, it's about children, boys and girls alike. The next area, still on the social role of football, is climate. Climate is also, of course, a priority for FIFA. In 2016, FIFA has become the first sports organization to join the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, Climate Neutral Now campaign. In 2018, at the COP24 in Poland, we committed to reduce carbon emission by 45% until 2030 and be carbon neutral by 2050. These are just steps, but everything that goes in between these steps, such as the fact that we put elements on climate protection as well in our bidding documents, like for human rights, are important to show that football is much more than just a sport. Coming back to the sport, though, we need to look at integrity. If before players enter the pitch, they have the feeling that the match is rigged, or the fans have that feeling, then the soul of football is dead. We know that around 50% of the world sports betting is invested or played in football. At FIFA, we are monitoring 36,000 games a year. 0.4% of these games, around 150, show some suspicious pattern. But once we have that, what do we do? How can we act? So we have established with the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crimes a FIFA Global Integrity Programs, which involves all of you, all the 211 member associations, because we need to work together, and we need to work together with law enforcement agencies to tackle match fixing. Next item is education, very important, and the Football for Schools project, which is very close to my heart, and I know to the hearts of many of you. We want to bring football to the schools, but not just playing football, educating through football. Because football is teaching us so many things. It's teaching us respect. It's teaching us team spirit. And with the excuse of football, you can speak about anything, about discrimination, about gender equality, about empowerment. And we have elaborated a program, again, together with UNESCO and the World Food Programme, to go to 700 million kids all over the world. And we are looking for partners as well to help us in this area. And a Pan-African schools football tournament, which has just been launched, is going as well exactly in that direction. Education and football together. Let me say, to conclude this part, that FIFA has become, in the last few years, a trustworthy partner. I was telling you some years ago that FIFA was toxic, that nobody wanted to come anywhere close to FIFA, and it was true. Today we have agreements, working, structured agreements with the World Health Organization, with UN Women, with the UN ODC, with UNESCO, with the World Food Programme, with the African Union, with the Council of Europe, with ASEAN, with the G20, very soon with CARICOM as well, and many others. And I would like at this stage, on behalf of all of you, to thank all these international organizations to play together with us in the same team for our children, for our society. Let's go to the 10th area, and that is, of course, the fans. Football is the people's game. We need to remember that. I am a fan as well. Would have preferred to be a player, but when you have two left feet and are right-footed, it's a bit complicated. So I'm a fan, like many, many, many of you, I know that. And football is the people's game. We had, just to cite again a few figures, 1.2 billion viewers at the last Women's World Cup. We had 4 billion viewers at the last Men's World Cup. So we have over 5 billion football fans worldwide. And each one of these football fans is fan of what? He's fan first of his country, of his national team, or her national team. Then he's fan of a local club, the club of his city, the club where he's grown. And then he's as well fan of one of these big global clubs, and sometimes in recent days as well of some individual players. Now, I firmly believe that it is our task and our job to work in order to give each of these 5 billion fans something with which he can live his passion. We don't have to look only at 1 or 2 or 3. We have to look at everything, at making football truly global. And the last area, number 11, is digital. Why digital? Well, we have just seen with the figures that football has uniquely the ability to connect the entire world. Recently, technology is also enhanced and has the possibility to connect the world as well, in another way, but still to connect. So if we can somehow join the global appeal of football and the new opportunities that digital technology offers, we can achieve great things. We can make our sport more popular. We can democratize it more. And we will involve you all 211 member associations who will be part of a new digital FIFA venture. Stay tuned and you will hear from us very soon. So these are the 11 areas for action. There is a lot on the plate, but there is also a lot of energy and motivation and enthusiasm to tackle each and every one of these areas from top to bottom. So let me conclude by saying, as you have seen, that we have very clear objectives for the year ahead. We want to make football truly global. And we want to do that together. Because we need you, the 211 FIFA member associations. We need you all to speak up. We need you all to tell us what you think, to tell us what you want, to tell us how we can make football globally better. And together, dear friends, together we will shape the future of football. This is the time.